Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Today we are doing another melt and pour soap tutorial, and first I'm going to show you all the ingredients that I use, and I'm going to be chopping down a clear melt and pour soap base, and I'm going to use a coconut milk soap base for this tutorial. And I'm going to go ahead and melt those down. I'm using equal parts, and I'm doing about 20 ounces or total, so 10 ounces each. I'm using a sea kelp and agave fragrance oil, and I'm using these little kelp granules. You can buy them in the granules or the powder. This is also sea clay that I've put in a color block. If you're interested in that, I have a link down below. I'm also using shamrock silver to give the soap a little bit of sparkle. That's from Nurture Soap, and a little bit of Proud Peacock to kind of give it a little bit more of a sea color as we go along with the soap process. So first I went ahead and melted down the soap bases, and I'm just going to add a little scoop of the shimmer because I don't want too much or to be overpowering, but I'm doing this to the clear portion because, like I said, I want the actual shimmer to show through, and I thought it would show through better on the clear base as opposed to the coconut milk base. Now for the next part, I'm going to be adding the sea kelp. I'm just using 1 spoonful of this because you really don't need a lot, and I just want it to have a little bit of abrasion in the soap. I don't want it to be over scratchy or powerful, and I also want it to fully mix into the soap well so that there aren't like a lot of clumps and that it's evenly dispersed but like not overpowering the soap base itself. Now, if you're not sure why to use sea kelp or what the benefits are, it is great for your skin. The abrasion can help remove dead skin cells and help new skin, grow back and have like a nice glow to it. It could help unclog your pores. It's good for blood circulation. It can help reduce or prevent acne, and it's good for detoxing the skin in general. And I know there are going to be some people in here saying that you shouldn't add stuff like this to melt and pour soap, but I did a lot of research on this one, and I've seen a lot of other professional soap makers, even big corporations, using the actual sea kelp grains in their soap. Now for the coconut milk base, I'm going to be adding sea clay, and like I said, I made little color blocks for these to help disperse the clay evenly so we don't have a bunch sitting at the bottom of the soap. And clay is kind of hard to incorporate in melt and pour soap, so again, there's a link down below if you're interested in something like that. Basically, you just cut off the little chunks and you melt them down in your hot melt and pour soap, and the heat of that should be enough to melt them. So I have this at about 130. I do have to stir this really good for a couple minutes, and it will start to cool down and the color blocks will melt. And you can kind of see them sink to the bottom if they're not fully incorporated. One of the benefits, or some of the benefits, of sea clay is also good for like acne prone skin, eczema, and it's supposedly an anti-inflammatory agent, so that's why we're adding it. I just thought it would be a great sea theme soap. I'm also going to add the fragrance oil to both of these bases, and I'm doing a spoon of each, a spoon into each container. Because the reviews on this fragrance on their website said that it fades. It also said it wasn't good for cold processed soap, so I decided to fragrance it a little bit stronger, and I'm glad that I did. It helped mask some of the smell of the kelp, but again, the fragrance oil is kind of like a kelp smelling fragrance oil, but it smelled a little bit cleaner. So it kind of hid some of that smell, but you kind of get a little bit of it too when you actually use the bar of soap. And I overall was pleased with it. It's not something I normally expect, but it's just a different fragrance. And I would say it's definitely unisex if you're looking for something unisex. And I also would recommend using it because it came out well. I'm also just doing some temperature checks on the soap to get started. I wanted a nice swirl with these, so I thought I would start at 120, but it turned out to be a little bit on the warm side for pouring, so I actually waited a while, stirred the soaps a little bit more, and let them set up a little bit after I did the first initial pour. And part of the reason that I wanted to wait to make sure that these were cooling down a lot is because I wanted the little granules from the soap or from the kelp to actually float in the soap. I didn't want them all sinking to the bottom, and with them being a little bit heavier, it's hard to make sure that they stay suspended, kind of like if you were using coffee grounds or something. It's very similar to that. So like I said, I just kind of started off with a little bit. I probably poured about an ounce or two into the bottom, and then I realized, okay, this is too fluid, they're gonna mix too much, and it's gonna get muddy. Again, we're doing another temp check, and they're about the 110 range. If you could get it a little cooler, it would help suspending it just a little bit longer. I also wanted to make sure the stuff I poured on the bottom was suspended pretty well, and I was noticing a couple of chunks of the sea clay still in that soap base, so I was trying to make sure those were all the way out as well by just giving it some additional stirring and making sure it was really ready to pour, so it would, like I said, stay suspended in the soap, and we would get a nice swirl. So what I started to do after I got a little impatient was just go ahead and dump all the coconut milk base in there and let it start sitting up, because I thought it could cool down a little faster. And then I just worked on the sea kelp one, and I tried to get it down to about 105, I believe. And that way I would know that the granules would suspend really well into the soap. So I just kind of took my time with that portion and poured them in slowly and poured them up from high, because I wanted it to kind of drop in there and give it a nice swirl. And I'm just showing an up close shot of how the granules are kind of staying suspended in the soap base now. Now once all that was poured in, I went ahead and spritzed the top with the rubbing alcohol just to get rid of any bubbles, and you can kind of see it was moving just a little bit, and this is a close-up shot of it sitting. I went ahead and let this sit for about 4 hours before I even attempted to pop it out of the mold to make sure everything was set up really well. And if you haven't used these molds before, they are just a 1-pound mold. I believe I found this on Amazon. A bunch of soap retailers sell them as well. They're really sturdy. I love them. They are kind of hard to pop out of the mold. You just kind of have to make sure you release that air bubble, and you can kind of see it at the bottom. And once that's released, you can push it through. It's really simple, but it takes a practice of doing that a few times before you get it down. But it makes really good soap. A pound of soap is only 16 ounces. I usually measure anywhere from 20 to 22 ounces to get that filled all the way to the top. As you can see, a lot of the kelp is at the bottom from the initial pour that we did, but you'll see when I cut this that it turned out amazing, and I was very pleased and happy with the end results on this one. Out of all the soap I've done in a long time, this has been one of my favorites, and I think it's partly because I took my time with the swirling technique. I also have other videos on my channel about swirling melt and pour soap if you want to check those out. And if you have questions about the color blocks, I have a video about that as well on my channel, and I'll put a link for that. If you guys have any questions or any comments or suggestions, don't forget to leave them down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and it helps out a lot. I appreciate everyone that comes here weekly and has something to say. It brightens my day, and I love getting to know you guys.